So we're about to get started on cutting the pavilion of this hopefully museum size and quality Morganite. Hi, I'm Steve Moriarty from MoreGems.com. Our Morganite is successfully dopped up and we've got it placed into the UltraTec V5 faceting machine. This is a machine I currently recommend to you people interested in getting into faceting, and even for you people that have been faceting for a while and are looking for a better machine. This is the one. It's one I'm trusting, this very expensive Morganite that will get it cut right. So when I bought this piece of Morganite, I looked at it and it obviously was some triangular shape. We talked about it. The best yield would be a shield cut out of this, mainly because of the way the corners were. But I know that a trilliant will cut a prettier stone, so that's what we're going for. And I looked at it and I really wanted to do a Portuguese style. So I looked for some designs on Portuguese styles because it's not easy to just sit down and cut a Portuguese in this kind of shape. So I was hoping to find a design, and after looking for a while, looking at several designs, this is the design I finally chose. This is a Portuguese cut that fits my dimensions correctly. I found this on facetdiagrams.org, and the designer of this particular design is Ottorino Invernizzi. Hopefully I got that right. And the notes are in Italian, so I think I could figure out what they're talking about. But so this is not an easy cut to do. And although most things I create myself, creating a Portuguese like this is a little challenging. So hopefully this one works out and fits all the dimensions that I need. And so let's get cutting. So to start with, we're going to use the master lap and the 360 grit topper. Make sure it's tight. Make sure our stone is in there tight, and I can show you just how you put this in here. So this is chamfered to fit into the machine, and this will, where this is, will be the 96 index. Make sure it's good and tight. So we're going to start cutting the girdle. So we're going to set this at 90 degrees. Lower the drip pan a little bit. And then lower the mast to the lap. So we're going to be cutting to 90, so you start a little higher than 90. So our first girdle index is 4 and 92. Start the water. So we're starting to cut just over here. So here's our index. Right now we're sitting on 4. 3 and 6 are marked, and you can see the little indentation there for 4. and 92 would be the opposite. So we just cut a very little bit here. So let's, we can cut a little more there. So while you're cutting, you know, although they have a handle here, I don't use it because you try and put the pressure on the stone so you don't put stress on the epoxy and break it free. So the other indexes are 28 and 36. And we're just cutting to 0, and that'll give us a 90 degrees. So this set of facets, what on the design says G1, Girdle 1, what we have to do is close up these corners and make them all match. So we're going to have a lot of material, particularly here we're going to lose. But, you know, we've got a 744 carat piece of rough. We're assuming we're going to get somewhere 250 carat or more. So we're going to lose 350 carats. Which is a little scary, you know, when you think of the value of this stone and how much you're going to cut away, but let's start cutting. So that probably removed 100 carats of this material. And we still got more to go, but right now I'm just trying to cut this flat facet to get our overall outline of the design, and just having to remove a lot of material from the corners, which I knew had to go. So that's somewhat of our outline shape. I still have a few facets to put in, but looking pretty good so far, like our preform is working well. Still 40, almost 49 yet. Okay. So on the design, I matched up G3, which is this facet right here. So now I've got to go back and cut the corners in, these facets here, and close up our corners. So we still have a little bit of material here, but it looks like we're going to close up about right. So first I cut G3, which was on the 96, 32, and 64 index. And then I cut G1, which is these facets out here. Now I've got G2, which is going to be in the middle here. I'm going to want to make those all three about the same. So probably G1 out here at the end, I'll have to cut a little more. Although what I cut did close up all the corners, and that's one thing we had to accomplish. We had to have sharp corners there. So we've done that. So our basic our preformed stone, or the shape of this final stone, is pretty much there. And it looks to be the size I was hoping for. So there's still hopes for over 250 carats. So this was G3, and this was G1. Now I've got to do G2, which is right here, and we'd like these facets to be equal. But when I cut G2, it's going to cut both directions, and it's going to cut this smaller than we wanted, G3. So we'll have to go back and probably cut the other facets after I cut G2. So to cut this next facet, I want to end up at 90. So I'm cutting at 90.11, and just an estimate of what I think I need to get that right size facet. And just consistently check, because the worst thing you can do is overcut. And once I've cut one, I can cut them all to 90. And when I tell you, I would just say 0. I'm cutting to 0, but it's 90 degrees. So as you can see, G3 is still much bigger than G2 and G1. So I'll have to cut G2 and G1 again, trying to make all three equivalent sizes. So the girdle is pretty much finished as far as I cut this with a 320 grit. We'll go back over it probably with a 1200 and then we'll polish. So all three sides are done, the corners are closed. Looks like plenty of material for a crown. So I'm not one who follows designs typically, so I don't understand everything on these designs. Like they're asking for a cam preform, which I think I understand it. They're preforming at between 34 and 37 degrees, which is going to give us a culet cut to an angle that doesn't have any effect on the rest of it, because we're going to cut at a very shallow angle, so it's only going to cut, you know, this deep. And when we go to finish actually cutting, it's going to cut deeper than the angles they're giving. So normally the culet would be at 41 degrees, and they're having us cut at 37 degrees. So just to give us a temporary culet is what we're after. So we're going to cut this now and form a temporary culet. So we're cutting the G1, which is 4 to either side of 96, and we're going to form a culet. So each time I hit the angle that I want to hit, that I'm not far enough. We're trying to get to a culet. I have to turn to a higher number until I cut down to 3424, and I still haven't cut far enough. So I'll go to a higher number again. Now that I'm getting close to the center, I'll want to cut the other facets and just see how close I am. So generally when you are cutting, you want to cut with the lap. You know, the lap's turning this direction. I generally don't want to do this. Sometimes you can catch the lap and pop the whole stone off. So, you know, if it catches this way, it just flips it up. So cut with the lap, not against the lap. You know, sometimes I'll polish against the lap, but cutting different, especially with these coarse grits. So we're close to closing to a culet, but not quite. So I'll lower the mast a little bit and we'll close the culet, and then we'll actually start faceting. So as these facets on the girdle are going to determine how the size of everything I cut in the pavilion, I'm going to go back over this with a finer grit and make sure they're exactly the size I want them. So I'm going to start cutting the pavilion now, and the way this cutting progression goes, I cut from girdle to culet, and I'm not exactly sure how to estimate how far to cut this first facet. I think the proportions are about 2 to 1, meaning the pavilion's twice as deep as the girdle. So I measured it and measured up, this is 31 millimeters, so I measured up about 10 millimeters. I'm going to try and cut this first facet to that mark I made at 10 millimeter and see if it works. I'm using a new 1200 steel lap. Hopefully it's coarse enough to cut this fairly quickly. So here's the facet I'm cutting, and I'm going to cut further down to about here, and hopefully that works for us as we cut in the rest of the facets and cut up towards the culet. So I cut, this is a G3, Girdle Facet 3. It's actually on the 96 index. And I cut it to a depth I thought left enough for the crown. I'm not exactly sure how they determine the depth you cut with this design, but I'll give it a wing it and see what we get. So I cut these 3 facets all to the same depth all the way around, cut them to 0. Now I'm cutting the G2 facet, which will cut over to this point, and we'll try and get it also, they're both cut at 62 degrees, so I may have to change the height of the mast a little bit to get this hit 62 degrees at that point. We'll see. Right now we're, let's see, right now we're at 62.40. And I'm assuming we'll probably have to go up a little bit, because as you rotate the stone this direction, it does want to cut deeper. So I raise the mast and see if I can get them to both hit at 62 degrees. This So now we've met the girdle facet here at G3, and our preform worked out real well because I've got enough material there left for a girdle. So now I should be able to go around and cut down to 62, and we should be close. So once you get down close, you start looking, because you can't count 100% on everything hitting 0 and being the right spot. The better the machine, the closer it'll get. It looks like we're going to be pretty much dead on. Alright, so There's the first two girdle facets. We have 3 on each side. So we'll go around and cut these others. So we've cut G3, G2, now we'll be cutting G1, and this will line up across here. And then hopefully we find that these are in the correct position for these other facets to fill in correctly and meet here at the culet. There was the issue. So here's our first facet in the second row. This is step number 7. And it was cut at 57 degrees, so it's right up here in the corner. So our next facet, number 8, is 1, 31, 33, 63, 65, and 95. So easiest if you go back to the 96 and work from there. So we're going to go to 1. I'm going to raise the mast a little bit because I'm going to lower the angle and I don't want to hit the lap. So we're going to go down to 56. Then I'm going to slowly lower it. And see what it's doing. Where are you at? So we're all the way up here, and we're going to cut down here, and I'm assuming it's going to, I don't know if it's going to meet over there or not, but we're going to meet at this point down here for sure. Lower the mast a little bit. Cut the 0, see where we're at. Got to cut some more. This is a new cut for me, and I'm not totally sure what's going to happen. So apparently it's going to meet the first facet we did. So as I'm not sure exactly how this is supposed to go, I'm going to go to, we cut this on 1, I'm going to go to the other side and cut on the 95 and just get a feel for what's what this is supposed to do. All right, so we've met up here and we haven't quite met down here. So whether that's necessary or not is debatable. I think normally the design would meet here and meet here. But now that we've met there, I mean, there's no requirement that it meets down there at the bottom. I'm the cutter and I can determine that. And let's leave it like that at the moment. See, as we've met up here, we definitely, I assume we want to meet there for sure. And let's go on, we'll go on to the next step and see just what happens. Six on 3. So this is the facet I'm cutting currently, and I've cut this one over here. This one is the one I cut. So as you can see here, these don't meet down here, but that, to me, it's good because it would make these facets so thin that they're not real effective. So I call these houses instead of triangles. They look like a little house. But that makes these facets bigger, and usually it doesn't affect the rest of the design. So I'll continue cutting this down and estimate the height of this line here. So that's our first row on this side. So we're coming along pretty well. It actually is pretty straightforward and easy. Each row of facets, all you're doing is cutting till it comes down and meets the facet below it. So what you have to do is set your angle and then adjust the mast height. So when you get to the angle you want to be at, you hit the meet point. So it's just a little bit of adjustment back and forth to get it right. So you hit the angle when you hit the meet point in the facet row below it. So, and once you get that height set correctly for one, you can use it as a reference to facet the other, in this case, the other two facets. But you can't trust it completely because you just won't be exact. So once you get close to the number you set, the 0 or the degrees you set to be correct, once you get close to that, a couple points away from it, you just start looking and just keep cutting until you hit the meet point. So we're down to the last facet. We'll finish it now. I actually changed the angle slightly, so it changed the cut a little bit. This is barrel and the refractive index is fairly low, so I tried to make the culet facet a little higher angle. I only got the 41.5. I'd rather be at 42 generally, even up to 43, because the difference between quartz, which you cut at 43, and this is very little. So I think you need to be higher than 41 degrees. So we did get 41.5. It's a small facet, a small portion of the whole design, so hopefully it's good enough. So that finishes this out. I'll have to go over this stone with a lower grit. I'm going to use the 600. And it's possible I could go to the 1200 from here. We'll see how that works out. But these facets are small enough. I'm used to polishing facets that size using the 600 lightning lap. I'll cut one with it and see if it polishes easily. So I'll decide which lap we'll use on the next round cutting these, and I'll tweak the faceting just a little bit, try and make it a little more perfect than it is. So we're finished cutting this Morganite on the 1200 diamond lap, and now I'm going to go to the 600 lightning lap. Doesn't quite seem right, going from 1200 to 600 as a pre-polish, but because of the way these are made, they cut very, very smoothly. You know, probably like an 1800 is probably what this cuts like. So I'm going to go over the first row of facets on this piece and then try to polish just to make sure I can polish these bigger facets from the 600 and I don't have to go to the 1200 lightning lap. Just to make sure that this is a good enough pre-polish. So when you're cutting, during the cutting process, using a visor is very important. It will cut your time in half from using a loop. So I highly recommend this. Kind of messes up your hair, but it will cut your time down significantly in looking at the stone. So we are cutting at the same angles that we cut with the 1200, and this time what I want to make sure is, you can see the difference in the finish there. I want to make sure that I've cut through the scratches made by the 1200 lap. So you want to cut far enough that you can polish easily. And then just as you did with the 1200 lap, you're just matching up everything, make sure things line up when you're done, and try and improve on your facet meets during this cutting, because polishing, there's a limited amount you can do to improve your facet meets. So I'm going to work my way around the first row of facets, and then we'll show you the difference in the look of the 1200 steel lap and the 600 lightning lap. And then I'm going to polish that row and make sure it doesn't take too long to polish. If it's a long time to polish, we'll go and actually use the 1200 lightning lap to get a finer polish. But I'm pretty sure, you know, the facets aren't that big, although they're, you know, compared to a 5 carat stone, it's about 3-4 times the size of what the table would be on a 5 carat stone. So the facets are big and will take longer to polish, but hopefully we can work off this 600 lightning lap, you know, so I don't have too many steps, and hopefully ultimately it cuts down on the amount of time of cutting. So I just polished one facet on the row that we cut with the 600 lightning lap, and it polished, but it took a while. You know, when I'm cutting a stone, normally I'm 25 to 50 strokes to get it polished, but this was probably a couple hundred strokes. You know, but a couple hundred strokes is a minute and a half. So I'm going to try the 1200 lightning lap and see how long it takes to pre-polish, and just try and determine which is my best route. You know, I hate to go from 1200 and then go, or from 600 lightning lap and then go to 1200 lightning lap. So I'm just trying to find one step between polish and the 1200 diamond lap, the metal lap. What is the quickest route? Because these facets are bigger, you know, they're going to take longer to cut and polish. So we'll see what this does. I'm going to try the next row and then just decide which is the right route for facets that are as big as what they are on this, ultimately a 300 carat Morganite. So I tried the blue 1200 lightning lap, and it just took too long. So I'm going to take the extra time and just polish from the pink lap. I think it'll save me time overall. So just about done pre-polishing this. I'm on the last facet at the culet. So as I'm cutting the same facet on each side of this, I generally count to 50, and if that number works for that facet, I know to count to 50 on the matching facets around, and it just gives me a relative time. You know, if 50 didn't quite make it, I know I'd have to count to 60, but that's just my way of knowing how many times to go across the lap and to get the result I want from that facet. So now I'll move on to the bat lap and polish all those facets I just did. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and join us for our next video, final polishing this 744 carat Morganite.